Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Ramsey with Empire Life Podcast. Welcome. We're here with Angie de la Rosa. Did I say that right? De Rosa.
Yeah.
Angie de Rosa. And we are Empire Life. We help entrepreneurs build and create online empires and launch successful live events. And we're talking with empire builders that are building their online empires all around the world and some of their challenges, positive experiences and challenges with what they've had in their own business. And I'll go ahead and hand it over to you. Angie is a transformational mindset coach, and I'll let her explain a little bit more what she's doing.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm a transformational mindset coach. So I work with women entrepreneurs. And what I do is I really focus on helping them to overcome their, I typically work with fear. So overcome their fears that allows them to create that impact and income that they deeply desire so that they can in turn go on and create that life and that business that we've always dreamed of. Right. So yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Amazing. And can you expand a little bit more on the fear? So what does that actually look like? Or what are the biggest fears that you see with most of your clients? And then how do you guys kind of work through those? What does that look like?
Yeah, totally. So the common fears that come up are, as I'm going to say it, I know you guys are going to be like, oh yeah, I feel that too, because we're human and we all go through it. I go through it. Is the fear of, there's a few and they're all kind of linked together. So there's the fear of not being enough, not knowing enough, not having enough. So that whole enoughness kind of thing, right? Like your value. And then one of the biggest ones that kind of catch people off guard is the fear of success, which sounds a little like an oxymoron. It's like, hold on a second. I'm starting my own business. Of course I want to be successful. That's what I want, right? But then it's like, but you have this underlying fear, this subconscious fear. So consciously you want success, but subconsciously you're actually blocking it because of what you make success mean, right? Because we all have different meanings for what success looks like or what we want success to look like for us, right? Success is one of those kind of catchy phrases. And it's really about defining what it means to you. So I work with my clients, and the first thing I always ask them once I hear these words like success or financial freedom, or you kind of hear these key words, and I always ask them to define what it means to them. And once they start talking about what success means to them, I hear very common things like whether it be financial freedom, like, okay, well, what does financial freedom mean? So it's really like taking apart and digging through the layers. And what typically comes up with success is that it means that they're going to have to work like 12, 14-hour days, that they're going to miss out on time with their family and friends, that they're going to be completely stressed out because they're doing so much, that they're not going to have enough money to hire people to help them. So when you think about these things, it's like, oh my God, that sounds dreadful, So it's like you're sitting here saying you want success, but if that's your definition of success, you're subconsciously blocking it, because why would anyone want that? No one's going to say, yes, I totally want to start a business so that I can work all these hours, miss out on all of this quality time, all of these events, with my family and friends. And I just want to be miserable. That's what it sounds like, right? So once we reframe their definition of success, because we get to create what it means for us, right? Then it's an energy shift. And then you're like, oh, well, that sounds way more fun. Like I can totally do that. So now you're shifting your subconscious beliefs, not just your conscious beliefs of sitting here saying, oh, I want to be successful, right? So it's really about, peeling back those layers and digging down deeper and going that extra level deeper of like, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Okay, and what about that? Describe
how can we define that more? What does the success mean to you?
Yeah, what does it mean to you? What does it look like? How does it feel? When you wake up in the morning, what are you going to do? What do you want that first thing to be? And it's like, it almost sounds dreadful, right? But it's like, no, I want to wake up and I want to be able to do this and this, or I want to, only work the 3 days a week. And of course, when you're first building your business, you might not have that ideal kind of schedule of like, well, I just want to work 2 hours a day,
I
3
love
days a
that
week,
though.
right?
3 days a week.
Yeah, well, that's essentially where I'm at based on my schedule with my daughter, right?
Yeah,
But if she was in daycare full time, I'd probably work 5 days a week, you know?
right.
Um, but you work with what you have. So it doesn't have to be hard. Um, yes, it can be challenging, but that's part of the benefits, in my opinion, of building
Exactly.
your own business is so that you're constantly challenging yourself and pushing yourself outside your comfort zone so that you can continue to, grow and evolve, um, and just become what it is that you want, as opposed to staying in your comfort zone and just surviving,
Yes.
just doing the same thing over and over and over because you're in your comfort
Totally.
zone and you can do it effortlessly, right?
Yes. I loved how you pointed out that you are an extroverted introvert.
Yes.
I mean, maybe you're not like falling right into that category, though. Can you talk to the tribe a little bit about how you overcame being super shy or introverted
Yeah.
and moved towards being out of your comfort zone, pushing that boundary a little bit more? Because probably a lot of people watching have gone through something similar, or they may be wanting to push
Push
past that.
themselves. Yeah, totally. So it's funny because I think even with you, it's like when I told you like I'm actually an introvert, you're like, what? No, you're not. And other people too, they're like, no, you're so not.
Really?
But so I'm the youngest of six, so I grew up constantly being shushed, being quieted, being told I was too loud. So I I very much learned how to be the good kid and listen to other people, which meant being quiet. And I became really shy. I was that person that would hide behind my mom, whenever I met new people and stuff. So now when I see people, they're like, oh my God, I see you all the time and you da 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 da. And I'm like, no. So what I've learned is that in order that first of all, once I figured out that I get to create my own reality, that I get to create my own story, and that I don't have to keep my old story of every experience I've had, every bad thing that's happened to me, every sad thing or whatever. I don't have to let that dictate my future. Like that was in my past. Yes, it happened. I learned a lot from it. But instead of staying in that world and just being like, well, this is it. This is the cards I've been dealt, right? That's actually what kept me in corporate for so long. I was just like, well, I guess this is life. But once I figured out that I get to change that and I get to create my own, my new life, so to speak, or my future, that's when I started pushing myself outside my boundaries. And what that literally looked like for me was um, committing to things without knowing how I was going to do it. I know it sounds a little ridiculous.
Yes,
So
like jumping before you actually know
without even
that
knowing.
this is all
And
going to work out. Like just trusting this is going to
trusting,
work
yeah.
out perfectly.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And trusting is such a big thing. Even when I was working with my last coach,
Oh
she's like,
yeah.
you really need to work on trust. I'm like, I know. And it's just trusting myself. It's not about trusting other people. It's more trust, not necessarily trusting that things will work out. Yes, of course, that's part of it. But also trusting that if they don't, I will figure it out. Trusting myself enough to know that I can figure it out when shit seems to go wrong or not according to plan kind of thing. It's like,
Oh yes,
all right,
exactly.
I'll figure it out. Like, okay, cool. I thought that this would happen. I thought that this person would agree, or I thought that this was coming in. And it's like, okay, now what? Let's get creative. Let's figure it out. As opposed to panicking and be like, oh my God, now what? Forget it. Like, let me just run back and go back to my comfort zone. Like for me, it would look like go back to my comfort zone and just start applying for jobs again or something, you know?
Yes,
Um,
totally. Yeah.
yeah, so for me, it was literally committing to that. And of course, with having an online business, there's that fear of showing up, of being seen on social media. So for me, some of those things look like, telling people I was going to go live on Facebook, So now it's out there. People are expecting me to go live as opposed to keeping it in my head and being like, because then I can always make up excuses for myself as to why I'm not going to go live. So I'd literally make a post being like, hey, I'm going live on, in about an hour to talk about this. Join me, hit post. And I'm like, oh my gosh, now it's out there, right? Like now there's that accountability. But I would
Exactly.
literally like push myself to do those things. Or kind of like the thing, have people challenge me and it's like, okay, I'm doing it. Like every single time I go on Facebook Live and people don't believe me, I still get nervous. But it's like,
I
that's
feel
my
like
way
we
of
all do.
pushing myself. Yeah.
We're all getting nervous. I sweat so much on it. We all, even if every single person, even if they look calm and collected, they're secretly nervous at some level, even if they're
Right.
experienced with it.
And when you're not, to me, I always say, like, if you're not, then you're not pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. So now
Yeah.
you got to step it up a bit and figure out a different way to push yourself outside your comfort zone, right? So maybe that looks like, I don't know, singing on Facebook. Like it doesn't even matter. Like it's really just about continuing to push yourself because that's where the evolution happens. That's where
Yes,
you're going
for
to
sure.
learn so much about yourself that you can apply to every other area of your life because yes, you're talking about your business, but you are your business. So it really translates into every other area of your life. So yeah. And if you need to,
Yes.
get an accountability partner, like literally reach out to a friend and be like, hey, I want to do a Facebook Live. And I'm using Facebook Live as an example because it's such a common thing that people are afraid of. It could even mean posting or telling people what you do, right? A lot of the times when we start a business, we're afraid to tell people that we actually have a business because we don't feel like we have a business because we haven't had any clients yet or we haven't sold a product yet. So how do we have a business? So it could even be like, hey, I'm going to make a post about my business. So if you don't see that post in the next 48 hours, like come knocking on my door and make sure that I get it done, like
Yeah, I love that.
as simple as that. Like it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't
Yes,
need money, like it's literally a friend and they'd be like, okay, cool. I'll do that. I'm going to set it in my calendar. I'm going to hold you accountable. Sometimes you just need
exactly. And the more you say it, then it
that.
becomes your reality. You're like, this is
Totally.
who I am. This
Yep.
is what I'm doing. This is me.
Yep.
It starts to become just so fluid and natural when you're talking with people. Then outside, like, yeah, this is me.
Yes.
Because
And
you've
a lot of,
practiced it so much, and you're like you've embodied it.
yeah, totally. And a lot of the things, because I remember me when I first started too, it's like you have this fear, again, another common fear of what other people will think. Meanwhile, it's all made up in your head, right? Of like your old coworkers. That's a very common one, right? Like, especially for me, like coming from corporate, it's like, oh, what are they going to think? They're going to think that I left that for this. Like, all these thoughts are going to be coming up, but it's like, who cares? I've actually received more support and like I know from people I would never even thought of or people I haven't spoken to in years. And I'm like, okay, cool, this is great.
Yeah,
But it's like it's almost like this rush that you feel it's like, okay, cool. Now I've just stepped out of my comfort zone. Now I've expanded my comfort zone. So it's really about like continuing to expand that comfort zone.
that's so true.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, I remember I was going to ask you, what do you feel is one of the most important things to do when you're defining your own success and creating your own reality based on you had touched on really getting clear on how you want to feel once you've reached that goal. Can you explain that a little bit more when you're defining your own success?
Yeah, totally. So when I'm working with my clients and we're talking about, okay, what does success mean to you? In addition to, what they're talking about, whether that be a certain amount of money or whether that mean, you know, having a certain home or, having a certain lifestyle, to dig a bit deeper, I also ask them to tap into how are they going to feel when they have that, to literally help them visualize it, because it's one thing to visualize it, um, but the most important thing about visualizing it, or whether you have a dream board or a vision board or whatever you want to call it, is tapping into the emotions, so that when you see that picture, when you see that image that you're painting, it's like, how are you feeling? Like literally, like, oh my God, are you excited? Are you thrilled? Do you feel at peace? Um, because it's easy for people to talk about what they don't want. But once you ask them what they do want, that's when they're like, oh, I don't really know, but I could tell you what I don't want, right? You
Exactly.
see that like even in posts sometimes or just anywhere, you ask someone, what they want, and they'll automatically go into talking about what they don't want. And I hear them out, and I'm like, okay, but you never told me what you want. I'm not going to assume that what you want is the opposite of what you don't want. So forcing them to, and I say forcing, but really forcing them to talk about and think about and get clear on what it is that you want. And yes, that helps them, kind of like the first step of becoming clear, but then it's the action. You get more clarity through action as opposed to sitting here and thinking about, this is what I want and this is how I want to feel. That's the very surface first step of it. Then it's like, okay, cool. So let's take some action on some of that. And it's like, whoa, what do you mean?
That leads me. Yeah, that totally leads me into the amazing gold nugget that you were wanting to share. So when you're getting to that point and you want to take action, then and you're looking around, I'll just give myself even as an example, and I'm looking around and I'm like, shit, I don't have the perfect camera, right?
Yeah.
I don't have a huge microphone in front of my face that costs $5,000. Okay, so I must not like do any podcasts, but then people are seeking that. People are needing to get their voice out there. I'm needing to get our voices out there. I have a huge passion to help other people let everybody know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge passion of mine. I wake up in the morning excited about that, and I know I need to be doing that.
Yeah.
So I had some feedback of, well, if you don't have everything perfect, then just don't do it. Just wait. Yeah, don't bother. You have to be a professional, but nobody's really a professional as professional as when they first start. And can you go into that a little bit about
totally. And even like hearing the word professional, I'm sitting here, of course, going, well, what does professional look like?
Yeah, right.
What does that mean, right? But yeah, so I always tell people, and it's something I remind myself of too, right? Because I used to be very much like left brain, analytical, and like type A personality. And I'm a Virgo, so that should explain some things. But it's like, I always felt like it had to be perfect. Again, what I defined as perfect, right? In order for me to do something. And I wasn't getting anywhere. I was just kind of like on a treadmill, spinning my wheels and being like, hold on, I need to plan this out. But I always say done is better than perfect. I don't care what your definition of perfect is, done is always better than perfect. So literally taking that step without seeing the full staircase, or taking that step without knowing where that next step is going to be, right? But just literally one step at a time and being like, okay, I've now told everyone what I do or what I want to do. Now what? Okay, let's start doing it. What would be the next step of doing what I just said I want to do? Well, maybe it's reaching out to people. Maybe it's learning about something, because we can sit here forever and make up excuses about, I don't know enough. I don't have the right education.
Right.
I don't have the right certification, or like you, I don't have the tools to do a podcast.
Exactly.
I don't have a fancy camera or a fancy microphone. So that one, I have to.
I can't do an Instagram because then I'm competing with all these people that have these huge cameras, and it's not actually the reality. Like we have to start.
No, and I'm actually like, for myself and a lot of other people, it's like I'm more attracted to the people who, do their Facebook lives or show up, I should say, because it's not only about video, but people who continue showing up in their business as raw and real as possible, rather than those people who show up and look put together and picture perfect with like, the perfect backgrounds and the perfect lighting and like, I don't know, the perfect hair, like whatever, right?
Makeup, you're like, wow, did they get a makeover every time?
Yeah. And that's what I'm drawn to, because for me, it's always about that raw, real, authentic, vulnerable vulnerability that people show up with. Because to me, I'm like, I can relate to that. I'm like, awesome, you're human. You said, I used to be so self-conscious of the fact that I say a lot, or I say like a lot, or whatever, right? Because we're always hardest on ourselves. But it's like, just keep showing up. That's what people like. So just continue to show up, whatever showing up looks like, right? Because again, you get to define what that is, right?
Exactly.
You get to define what showing up looks like. Maybe showing up looks like, posting on Instagram once a day, every day, right? Maybe it means doing a Facebook Live or a video, I should say, once a week. Like, you get to define that. And not only do we get to define that, but it can change. So whatever you define it to mean right now is not what it has to mean 2 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. Because that's also what stops people from taking that step, is that they feel like they need to know, like, have the plan for the next year, the next 12 months, because they feel like if they pivot, then it looks unprofessional. It looks like they don't know what they want. And I'm like, no,
like they fail. They
yeah,
fail. I'm a failure.
Yeah, I'm like, no, it means that you've evolved. Like, when I first started, I worked specifically with moms. Now I'm like, no, I work with women. Yes, a lot of them happen to be moms, but I can help. I mean, although we can help so many, and you want some sort of a niche, but it's like you're just constantly pivoting because you're always growing, evolving, and expanding, right? So if you're, like Maru says, if you're not growing, evolving, and expanding, then you're shrinking. So you are going to constantly kind of pivot and be like, okay, cool, this is the direction I'm being led to right now. So now I'm going to run with that, and not being afraid to pivot as opposed to just staying.
I love her Maruisms, what they call
her Maruisms. Yeah, totally.
Because you, like you were saying, you need to be moving forward. So you're like, okay, now I've defined success as this, and then how am I going to move forward from this? And maybe like making bite-sized chunks of, I can do this week, and this is as much as I can do, and then that's enough.
Yes.
Wherever you're at, like you were saying, this is enough.
Where you're at. Yeah. Start with where you're at, even if it's like one thing a week, one task a week, because you're working full time or whatever. You have 5 kids running around, or it doesn't matter, right? We always feel like we have to dive head first, and it's an all or nothing. It's not an all or nothing. It's literally whatever works for you, and you get to define what that looks like. Maybe some weeks you can work on your business 4 hours that week, but then other weeks you don't even touch your business. Like, don't be so hard on yourself, because that's when you're going to stop doing it, because you're going to feel like, why bother? But it's really chipping away at it, and that's when you start gaining momentum.
Yes, it's consistency.
Yeah.
Continuing to show up. Like you were saying.
Define consistency, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people think consistency, there was before, what was kind of going around in our industry was the whole like kind of cookie cutter of like, you need to post 3 to 5 times a day in 3 to 5 groups. And I'm like, oh my God, even back then I was like, that doesn't even seem logical. Like, come on now, So maybe it looks like, like I said, showing up every other day or whatever. So, and it can change, right? So as you grow, expand, and evolve, your consistency will as well. So
yes. And sometimes we get into the feeling as we are growing the momentum and we're starting to have clients, we're starting to become really successful. Every day we're looking for more clients that we can onboard. We're wanting to support more and more entrepreneurs with what we're doing. And we start to feel like I'm just repeating myself. Like, they already know this, like you're saying. And sometimes I think, well, I think everybody's saying that.
Yeah,
everybody's doing that because we see we're attracted, like we keep attracting like that are similar to us. And sometimes I go on Facebook and I'm like, oh, everybody seems to be like helping entrepreneurs because they're attracted to me, because we're attracting what's similar with us and with the law of attraction, right?
Right.
How do you overcome that of feeling like you're repeating yourself or feeling like, oh, everybody already knows that?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's such a good thing. Or feeling like it's saturated kind of thing and all of that. So why bother? What would make someone choose me as opposed to someone else or who's doing the same thing or whatever? So I love that because I used to feel that too. But now I always use the same analogy of like, so, oh yeah, you're in the US. So it's kind of like a burger joint, right? How many freaking burger joints are there? I'm going to start naming Canadian ones, but besides, like, there's McDonald's, there's Burger King. You guys have Burger King. Whatever. There's a few. Five Guys. There's a few that you guys, Sonic, I think you guys have.
Sonic, anyway, do you have Sonic in Canada?
No, we don't.
Okay.
No, that's why I'm like, I know there's a Sonic. But whatever. There's like hundreds, if not thousands of different burger joints, right? Like franchises, mom and pop shops, whatever. But it's like, what brings you, they all sell burgers and fries and maybe other things, right? but you still go to, you know, that you like Burger King's burgers over Five Guys or vice versa, right? They're still burgers though, right? So it's almost like Five Guys being like, oh, Burger King exists, McDonald's exists. Why am I going to open a burger shop? Right? Like it's not actually
Totally.
saturated. You go there, maybe obviously because you like their burger, maybe you like their service, maybe you like their sauce. Like there's always something that's a little different. So with us as entrepreneurs, it's like, you know, we have a little different sauce, right? And that would be your
Yes.
personality. That would be your approach to things. That would be the way that you're able to break things down in a way that they can understand it better. You know, that would be the analogies that they use. You know, it'd be how you present it because everybody learns differently, right? And naturally, you're attracted to somebody's personality. Somebody's energy is different. You can have two people literally saying the exact same thing, but you're going to be attracted to one over the other because of how they bring it out. You know, like me, I talk with my hands a lot, you know, it's like that might be something that is like, oh my God, she's just more lively or whatever, right? As opposed to somebody literally just standing here and maybe saying something in a monotone voice or whatever, right? It's just like, even like products, right? There's a bunch of people selling MLMs, right? So what is the difference? Literally MLM products or network marketing products, they're all the same products, but you're going to go to one person over the other because you like the way this person, maybe wasn't as pushy, or maybe the way that they told you how you can use it or whatever. But the freaking product is the exact same thing, you know? So it's like you're attracted to the actual person itself, themselves, sorry.
Yes. And
Because
people,
that's what makes us different.
yes, they're their own brand.
Yes.
And something we work on with a lot of our clients is like, let's get your all around brand online, like really reflecting who you are. Like because
Yeah.
you're your own line brand, and that has a lot of fear and resistance all in itself. And actually, what does that look like? Like getting clear on that. Sometimes when I feel like really challenged, since I am in tech, I think about Steve Jobs, and he met Bill Gates before he created all the Apple products, and he could have said, oh, well, Bill Gates is in good with IBM and they're creating Microsoft. Nothing else needs to be done because Windows and Microsoft, like, they already got it all.
Why bother?
Yeah, don't bother. And I'm so glad that he did because I love Apple products. I'm using one right now to record this video. So that I always remind myself of that story.
Yeah, and even just like to tackle the whole like when we want to share a message and we think like, well, everybody already knows that, or everybody's already saying that. In addition to obviously saying it in your way, there's always the, you know what, just because somebody else said it, or just because maybe you even said it, because sometimes we feel like we're repeating ourselves, it doesn't mean that everybody heard it. I truly believe that you hear the message at the exact time that you need it. And even if somebody heard it, because I've seen videos, and even maybe the exact same video on YouTube or something, and I've rewatched them like 6 months later or 3 months later, and I've picked out different things that never stood out to me before. And so it's like, that's because right now I'm meant to hear that message. That's exactly what I need. And it's like, whereas before it just kind of went in one ear out the other, So not everyone's going to see it, and not everyone's going to pick out what they need from it. So whenever you feel the need to speak your truth, to deliver a message, just go on there and deliver it because somebody needs to hear it. I always say what's personal is often universal. So if it's something that you need, because a lot of times these messages that we're sharing, it's stuff that we need too, right? Like we're human. So it's like, oh, I know if this helped me, it's going to help someone else. It's not just me. Sometimes you feel like I'm the only one that feels this way, and that's not the case, right? So it's like by sharing it, you're helping other people, and you'll often see like, oh my God, thank you. This is the exact message I needed to hear right now. Great, like perfect timing, So just share it. Like, don't be afraid, because what's the worst that can happen? Nobody wants to hear it.
You get a few trolls and then you just delete it.
Yeah, like I've never even experienced trolls, but yeah, you can. You have that control, right? Trust yourself.
You just delete it.
You'll figure it out.
And focus on the people who respond and who really wanted to hear it, because there's going to be there's always going to be a lot more of them than maybe the few trolls that got in there.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I'm like, I've never even experienced that, but yes, some get more interaction than others. But again, keep showing up. Just keep showing up, because that
Exactly.
people will start to notice. They'll be like, oh, cool, I like this chick. Like, I like her little tidbits of messages, or the
Yes.
time she comes on and shares something, it's exactly what I need to hear at the exact right time. Or
Yeah. Then you're adding like tons of value.
yep,
You're continuing to add value, which is usually then converts a lot more clients because they see, wow, this chick adds so much value to my life. I need to work further with her, figure out. So, what,
exactly.
Angie, what would you like to add when we close up? Is there anything else you would love to add, like any other gold nuggets?
Um,
Shared amazing things with us so far already.
I think the thing that I just want to drive home is really the start with where you are and continue showing up. Like, those are really the two things that really help gain that momentum in your business, and kind of keep you going. It really is down to the simple things, such as continuing to show up and just going with it. Whenever you get an idea, I always say that if you get an idea for something, like, take that step to implementing that idea, because if you don't, someone else will, and then you'll be like, shit, that was my idea, I just didn't act on it, right? Like, I always say, it's the universe planting a seed, and it's always there for a reason, right? So they don't just plant seeds for no reason. So the universe, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, right? So it's like, just take the next step and continue showing up. If I had to leave with two
I
nuggets,
love it.
drive home.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
You're
Angie,
welcome.
for joining us today. And we'll put in the link how to get in touch with her as well.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.